Journalist Marvin Scott has been a fixture on TV news for a half century. He's interviewed 6 presidents and also covered the New York area for decades. He's got a new book out called As I Saw It that covers it all. I recently sat down and talked about it with Mr. Scott. First, I want to talk about the state of the business which we both share and trust in and the influence of journalism, particularly TV news, really on the decline. We've seen that reflected in polls. We hear from our president about the fake news media. Are you seeing that locally as well, too? Is there a reduced trust and leaning on local media as well?
Sadly. We've been seeing this for the past number of years. After Watergate, we were heroes. After Woodward and Bernstein broke that story, there was an upward spike of people wanting to get into journalism schools. And now we're viewed as scoundrels. And it's very sad. What has changed, Andrew, has been the advent of social media. They take what they see on Facebook as fact. There's a different standard in social media than what we adhere to, who came out of journalism schools. The who, what, when, where, why. Today, it's get it on first and check your facts afterwards. We've lost that control of editorial control, and I think that's what we've seen in the change.
And to be fair, our business has also reduced its local footprint to a certain degree. If you go up to the press room in Albany, in the Capitol building, there used to be, a dozen journalists or more there every day. Now there's a handful, maybe 1 or 2. Same thing with City Hall, even fewer if you go to the local or county level. It's having that institutional knowledge really makes a difference.
I've been up and have covered the legislature many times. The sad reality is we have lost many of our beat reporters. The veteran reporters who used to cover City Hall, the courthouse, the police department. And this is a result of cutbacks in the bean counters. We've also lost many editors in media outlets. We've lost something very important in this country. We've lost over 100 newspapers in the last 10 to 15 years.
You mentioned the rise of social media. I can't help but wonder, though, in the early 20th century, when newspapers gave way to radio, that similar conversations might not have happened. Mm-hmm. And then when radio begat television, and now that television's begat the internet, is this the sort of thing that repairs itself in time, or is it different this go around?
I think it's different this go around. When you had newspapers and radio, you didn't have 800 television stations. You didn't have dozens of news-oriented stations. You have to separate fact and opinion. Fox News, MSNBC, you got the right, you got the left. I advise people listen to Fox for an hour, then listen to MSNBC and maybe CNN, and then form your own opinion. People like to be spoon-fed the news, and that they gravitate to the media outlet that really reflects their own feelings. There's a bumper sticker out there. I get my humor from Fox Channel, and I get my news from Comedy Central.
Neither one may be that healthy, if you think about it. Marvin, you're one of the deans of the New York journalism industry as well as the political journalism. 50-plus years in the business. What prompted you to write the book, As I Saw It, A Reporter's Intrepid Journey?
Oh, there were several reasons. It had been at the top of my bucket list for the longest time. I figure I've covered 15,000 stories in the course of my career. And some of them are really unique. And it was quite a challenge to boil down 26 stories and a dozen of the interviews I've done over the years. I wanted to share those stories with people who I would tell them social functions. They say, Joe, to put that in the book. You put it in the book. And I dreamed of doing this book for a long time. And also, it was a reflection of good journalism and writing, which I was very proud of. But there was another ulterior motive. I wanted my grandchildren. Mm-hmm. I wrote it for my grandchildren. I wanted them. They are the future, and I wanted them to have some vision of the past, but come on, be honest. I want them to know who Grandpa is. You know?
If you read the back of the book or the book flap, it notes that you've interviewed 6 presidents: Martin Luther King Jr., Yasser Arafat, even Abraham Zapruder, who shot the tape during the JFK assassination. When you look back on your career, are those the moments that jump to the fore, or are they more? Are they stories
a microcosm?
Are they stories of regular people that jump to the?
I maintain, and I say in the introduction to this book, the heart of every story, at the heart of every story is a person. and it's the people I've met over the years. And when I say 15,000 stories, it's not all studio interviews, but it's the interviews I've done on the street. Maybe 3, 4 people I interview in each report I'll do on the nightly news, or go to a political convention. So they all add up. But it's the average person. And one of them I highlight out in the book is the bravest person I ever met. The people you mentioned, yes, Dr. King and presidents, but this was an 11-year-old girl named Stephanie Collado. She's my guardian angel up there. She needed a heart when she was 11. She came out of intensive care on her birthday, her 12th birthday, surrounded by family and friends. And I walked in, a little bouquet of flowers, and she was hooked up to tubes, and here she had a new heart beating inside of her. And she had such spirit, and she was so courageous, and she talked in a whisper, I want to thank God for my life, because God saved me. And we became friends. I was there when she left the hospital, and she turned to a nurse and said, I'm not going to miss the building, but I'm going to miss you. And she walked outside to get into a van, and she had balloons. She released them into the air, and she said, I'm so happy. And a couple of months later, she invited me to her grade school graduation, and she was honored for her courage. And I stayed in touch with her over the years. Stephanie was a very, very courageous, spiritual woman. 8 years later, I got a call from the family that her heart was failing. And I spoke to my news director. She was living in Florida at the time. News director allowed me to go visit her the following week. I spoke to her on a Friday, and she was in so much pain, but I could hear the smile in her voice. She was so uplifted and glad to hear from me. Sadly, the following morning, her mother called me, and she had passed during the night. And she had picked out the dress she wanted to wear and all. And she came back to New York, and I delivered the eulogy. Now, that is very unusual for a journalist to bond with a subject of his stories, but she was always so special. And to this day, I remember her birthday, and I call her mother. So that, when I talk about the heart of every story, is a person. Here is someone who needed the heart, and she touched mine.
Marvin Scott, anecdotes like that in As I Saw It, A Reporter's Intrepid Journey. It's available on Amazon now. Marvin Scott, best of luck with the book and with your continued success at Channel 11, and thank you so much for a few minutes.
Thank you, Andrew.
Up next, legendary theater critic John Simon returns with his review of Uma Thurman in The Parisian Woman.